I didn't plan to stay long, just enough to drop off Trevor's birthday gift, say a quick hello to Molly, and leave before things got uncomfortable. But the moment I stepped through the front door, I knew something was off. The foyer was almost unrecognizable. Polished wooden floors, a chandelier that looked like it belonged in a magazine, and the faint smell of jasmine candles floated in the air suite, but underneath, something sour lingered. Desperation, maybe. The living room was crowded with people. I didn't know. Men in tailored suits and women dressed like they belonged at a gala, sipping wine from crystal glasses and laughing a little too loudly. It didn't feel like a birthday dinner. It felt like a performance. Meredith, Trevor's wife, glided past with a tray of appetizers. Her dress shimmered, clearly expensive, and she didn't even make eye contact. Just a tight smile as she moved. Through the crowd, like a hostess at a party she didn't want to attend at, then Trevor spotted me. "Mom, you made it." He threw his arms out and pulled me into a quick hug, his smile wide too wide. Come in, come in." I handed him the gift, a sturdy toolbox I knew he could use. He glanced at it quickly, then set it down without opening. Thanks. Come upstairs, I've got to show you what we did with the bathroom." "I'd like to say hi to Molly first," I said, glancing around. "You'll see her later," he said, brushing me off. "Just come look real quick. You're going to love it." That's when I felt a gentle tug on my sleeve. It was Molly. She stood quietly beside me, her face pale, eyes wide. She wasn't dressed up like the others, just a college hoodie and her hair pulled back. She looked nervous, almost scared. "Grandma," she whispered, so soft I could barely hear her. "You need to leave. Now." Something in her voice froze me. I looked at her, and all I could see was the same little girl who once begged me not to leave her first sleepover. I didn't ask questions. I turned back to Trevor, forcing a polite smile. "It's getting late," I said. "I think I'll head home." He looked surprised, but didn't argue. I reached for my coat and quietly slipped out the door. I didn't know yet what was really happening. But in that moment, I trusted Molly's fear more than Trevor's. Grin. 3 days before the party, I had just finished folding the newspaper when Trevor walked into my living room without knocking. He looked eager, not angry. But there was a frantic energy about him, like he'd just come up with a solution to everything. "Dad's not here to say no anymore," he said. He wasn't grieving. He was strategizing. "I've got this new opportunity, a real estate syndicate, pre-leased commercial spaces. Guaranteed returns, Mom." He paced as he spoke, hands moving wildly, like a salesman who believed in his own pitch a little too much. "I want you in first, before I open it up to others. It's solid this time, no risk." I let him finish. Then I walked over to the cabinet and pulled out a thick manila folder labeled Trevor's Investments, 2014 to 2023. I laid out each failure like a map of broken promises. "Miami condos," I said, opening the first file. $75,000. The developer disappeared. Crypto mining gear, $50,000. The website vanished. No trace. Food truck business. Your partner was a convicted embezzler. You didn't check. He tried to interrupt. I raised my hand. "You're stuck in the past," he said. "No," I replied. "I'm stuck with the receipts." His face hardened. "You've never believed in me." "That's not true," I said. "But I've learned from the past, have you?" His voice rose. "When this deal takes off, don't expect a dime from me. Don't come crawling back. And just like that, he left. Slammed the door. The silence afterward was heavy. I looked at the folder still open on the table, then slowly put it back in the cabinet. I told myself for years he was just impulsive, just trying. But even hope has limits, and mine was running out. The morning air was crisp when I stepped outside to run a quick errand. But halfway down the walkway, something made me stop out my car, looked. Off, tilted, I walked closer. All four tires were flat. I crouched down and ran my fingers along the rubber. Near the side walls, small, neat punctures, I knew the pattern. Roofing nails. The kind I kept in my own workshop. The mechanic at Morrison's didn't sugarcoat it. These were done deliberately, he said. Someone knew what they were doing. I didn't say much. I didn't need to Trevor have left angry now, humiliated. And humiliation has a way of turning sons into strangers. That afternoon, while I watered the garden, Mrs. Henderson across the street waved from her porch. I saw your tires this morning, she said, shaking her head. What a shame, I nodded. Mechanic says it wasn't an accident. She hesitated. I was out Tuesday night, couldn't sleep. I saw someone around your car. Couldn't see clearly, but they moved like they knew the place. I didn't press her. I didn't need to. That evening, I sat in my favorite chair with a cup of tea, staring out at the quiet street. No cars, no kids playing. Just stillness and a heaviness in the air. I couldn't shake Dot. Then the phone rang. Trevor's name lit up the screen. Mom, he said, way too cheerful. How's your day? I said nothing. Big 4-0 tomorrow, he continued. Meredith's planning something small. Just dinner. Family. Molly really wants you there. He paused, let Molly's name hang in the air. Like bait. She misses you, he added. You two used to be so close. I looked out the window. My car sat there on new tires, but the damage wasn't forgotten. Sounds nice, I said carefully. Just dinner? Of course, Meredith's got it all covered. You won't believe the setup. I could already picture it, glittering wine glasses, too much food, too many smiles. A mask of love hiding something deeper. Still, it was Molly's name that made me say yes. For her, I said. Not you. The moment I stepped into Trevor's house for the party, I knew it wasn't a dinner, it was a show. The chandelier sparkled. Real crystal this time, not the cheap imitation they used to have. Sleek modern furniture replaced the old set, and a row of wine bottles I recognized from luxury menus lined the sideboard. The house looked borrowed. Like someone trying to impress people they didn't really know. Meredith floated over in a tight cocktail dress, her heels too high for comfort. Elaine, you look wonderful, she said, kissing the air near my cheek. Can I get you some wine? Before I could answer, a half-full glass was already in my hand. Trevor showed up seconds later, grinning like a politician. Mom, you being here means a lot, he said, before introducing me to a few guests I'd never seen before. Slick types, polished, loud laughs. Not a single familiar face. The wine kept coming. Meredith was always nearby, topping off my glass without asking. It started to feel less like hospitality and more like strategy. You've got to see the master bath, Trevor said suddenly. Completely remodeled. You'll love it, I smiled politely. Maybe later. No, really, he pressed. The marble is stunning. He was trying too hard. The room suddenly felt warmer, and not just from the wine. My legs were heavy. My mind a little foggy. That's when I felt a hand on my arm. Molly, pale, tense, still in her hoodie. She didn't belong in this polished room. Grandma, she whispered, please, you need to leave, now. I looked into her eyes and saw something raw and scared. I didn't argue. I set the wine glass down, stood slowly, and grabbed my coat. Mom? We haven't cut the cake yet, Trevor called from behind me. I didn't turn around. I just followed Molly's fear out the door. The taxi smelled faintly of mint and old vinyl. I clutched my purse tighter than I needed to, my coat unbuttoned, my thoughts spinning. I wasn't drunk, but something had been off. Too much wine, too much pressure. Streetlights slid past the windows, silent and cold. I pulled out my phone and dialed Molly. She answered on the first ring. "Grandma, are you okay? Are you safe?" "I'm fine," I said. "I just left the house. Now tell me what's going on." There was a pause, then a door closing softly on the other end. "I overheard them last night," she said, voice low. "They were in the kitchen. Mom said the wine would do most of the work. Dad kept asking if the documents were ready." My heart sank. "What documents?" "Some legal papers. They have lawyers upstairs, Grandma. After dinner, they were going to bring you up. Say it was just a quick signature thing. Something about transferring rights to the business. They planned to get me drunk and sign. Dad said if they timed it right, you'd be too relaxed to read the fine print." I felt cold all over. All those drinks. And the bathroom tour, I said slowly. Molly sounded like she was trying not to cry. I didn't know how to stop it. I almost didn't go tonight, but when I saw you, I knew they'd try. I couldn't let them. "You did the right thing," I said. "You got me out." "I didn't know what else to do," she whispered. "You did enough, but now I need you to stay quiet. Don't let them know what you heard." "I won't." The taxi turned onto Maple Street. My porch light was still on dot as the car pulled up. I realized this wasn't over. Not even close. I didn't sleep that night. I went through the motions, washed my face, folded the blanket on the couch, turned off the kitchen light. But my body was moving while my mind kept pacing circles. They weren't just trying to take the business. They were trying to erase me. The years I spent building something so Trevor wouldn't have to struggle like we did. All of it turned into a signature they wanted to steal. The next morning, I made my coffee stronger than usual, bitter and black. It cleared my thoughts. I stood by the window, staring at the empty street. The tree swayed gently. It looked like any normal day, but nothing felt normal anymore. Around 10, I saw Mrs. Henderson watering her plants. I slipped on my coat and walked across the street. "Dorothy," I said. She looked up and smiled kindly. "Morning, Elaine. How's the car holding up?" I didn't smile back. Shop said roofing nails, 4 clean punctures. She set the watering can down slowly. "I figured as much," she said. Then a pause. "I saw someone Tuesday night. Around your car." My stomach clenched. "Who was it?" She hesitated. I wasn't going to say anything unless I was sure. "But now I think you should know." She looked me in the eye. "It was Trevor. He didn't see me. He came up quietly, knelt beside each tire, did something with his hands, then left." I closed my eyes not to cry, just to stay steady. "Thank you," I said. "You're welcome," she replied. "You did nothing wrong." I nodded and walked back to my house. It wasn't sadness I felt. It was something colder, like a window. Finally closing inside, I sat at the kitchen table and opened the drawer where I kept my filing cabinet keys. No more excuses. No more hoping. It was time to protect what was mine. The filing cabinet gave a low creak as I pulled it open. Though I'd visited it more times than I cared to admit. Each folder inside held a memory, a mistake. A moment I tried to justify. Miami, Phoenix, Portland, failed condos, useless crypto, gear, a food truck that never saw daylight. I hadn't kept them to hurt him. I kept them in case he ever came back to learn from them. But he never did. That day, I stopped waiting. I cleared the dining table and laid the files out in a line. A timeline of disasters, each one signed by my trust. Every document was a mail he'd handed me. And now I was building something out of them. Not revenge, just a boundary. One I should have built years ago. I started with Miami. I made copies, contracts, emails, names of other investors. Then came the food truck debacle with the partner who turned out to be an embezzler. I found the registration papers Trevor never read. I added the crypto gear, the receipts, the bounced emails, even a screenshot of the dead website. I placed everything into large manila envelopes. No return address, just a note inside. For your records. From someone who thought you deserved the truth. Then I opened my laptop and pulled up Meredith's company, Pinnacle Financial Consulting. There she was, all polished smiles, senior client. Relationship manager. I started typing a complaint. Nothing dramatic, just facts. I wrote about the party. The wine, the documents. The plan to manipulate an elderly woman into signing away her life's work. I attached receipts, photos, even a scan of a lawyer's business card I'd found near their guest bathroom the month before. By the time I sealed the envelopes and scheduled the courier pickups, it was late afternoon. I hadn't eaten. I hadn't even looked at the clock, but I felt something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. Stillness. The phone rang, but I let it go to voicemail. Then they came in person. The door burst open like a storm, and Trevor's voice hit first. What the hell did you do? He stood in the foyer, his face red, fists clenched. Meredith was right behind. Him paler, quieter, but her eyes were just as sharp. You destroyed my reputation, Trevor shouted. Do you know what you've done? Marcus and David dropped out, he said. They called me. They're out, all of them. Meredith stepped forward. Pinnacle suspended me. Internal investigation. I could lose everything. I didn't get up. I didn't even blink. I understand exactly what I've done, I said calmly. Trevor pointed a finger. You went behind our backs after everything we've been through. No, I said. You went behind mine. You planned to drug me. You brought lawyers to your birthday dinner. His jaw clenched. You can't prove that. I have a witness, I said. A timeline. I have the man who saw you slash my tires. He flinched. Meredith looked away. I finally stood slowly, like the moment belonged to me. You didn't just betray me, Trevor. You tried to erase me. You wanted the business, not the name. You wanted what I built without having me in the picture. Trevor opened his mouth, but nothing came out. You think this is cruel? I asked. This is me being kind. I only told the truth. Meredith's voice cracked. We were drowning. We needed something to work. You could have asked, I said. But instead, you schemed. Trevor turned away first. Meredith lingered, her eyes searching for something in me that wasn't there anymore. It never came. They left without another word, watched through the window as their car pulled away. The silence that followed didn't feel empty. It felt earned. The locksmith arrived on Thursday afternoon. He was young, polite, and didn't ask questions. By sunset, the house had new locks, new codes, and a deadbolt that clicked shut like punctuation. Each turn of the key sounded like a promise. This is mine. You don't get to walk in anymore. That night, I left the porch light on. Not because I expected company, but because I wasn't afraid of shadows anymore. The corners of my house that used to carry dread now felt still, not peaceful, but mine. The phone rang just after 9. Molly. Grandma, she said, voice small. Are you okay? I'm better than I've been in a long time, I said. I'm sorry it all happened like that. I paused, then said, I'm not. She was quiet. You trusted your gut, I told her. You gave me the chance to trust mine. I was scared, she said softly. But I couldn't let them do that to you. You didn't, and I'll never forget that. We didn't need many words. When we hung up, the goodbye sat gently between us like a soft blanket. I stood by the window, tea cooling in my hand, watching the porch light glow across the front steps. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for someone to come home. I hadn't lost a son, I just finally accepted who he was. That realization hit gently, not like a tragedy, but like the end of a long, tiring book. After the call with Molly, I sat in my reading chair, tea forgotten beside me, staring out. Into the night, the sky was clear. No clouds, no cars on the street. Just stillness. Across the street, Mrs. Henderson's porch light flicked on. A quiet nod from someone who had seen it all. I hadn't protected Trevor. Not from the world. Not from himself, but I had protected something more important, myself. My name, my work, my story. That was what he wanted to take, and what I wouldn't let him have. The next morning, I moved through the house like it belonged to me again. Opened windows, dusted shelves. Put on a record I hadn't played in years. The music filled the room slowly, like a house waking up. There was no sadness, no grief, only truth. And in that truth, I found peace. Not the soft, warm kind you see in movies, but the real kind. The kind that lets you breathe again. A week passed before I saw Molly again. She came on a Sunday, a light knock on the door just after noon. I opened it to find her standing with a tote bag slung over her shoulder, eyes puffy but smiling. "I brought banana bread," she said, holding it out like a peace offering. I stepped aside. "You didn't have to bake, but I'm glad you came." The house felt warmer with her inside. We sat at the kitchen table, the same place where I once taught her how to braid dough and balance checkbooks. She looked around as if seeing it for the first time. "It's so quiet here," she said. "I like the quiet," I told her. We ate slowly. No rush. The way people do when they're trying to rebuild something with soft hands. She glanced up. "They're not doing well." I nodded. I figured. "Dad won't talk about it. Meredith cries when she thinks I'm not looking." "You don't have to carry that," I said. "They made their choices." She was quiet, picking at it. "Crumb, I miss who they used to be." "So do I said. "But missing someone doesn't mean you owe them your peace." Her eyes filled, but she didn't let the tears fall. "I didn't think you'd forgive me," she whispered. "I never blamed you." That broke her. She stood and wrapped her arms around me, trembling. "I'm sorry, Grandma," she said. "I should have said something sooner." "You said it when it mattered." We stood there for a long time, two women healing under a kitchen light. That night, after Molly left, I sat by the fire with a stack of old stationery. The pages were cream-colored, delicate, the kind I saved for when things needed to be said properly. I wrote my first letter to Trevor. I didn't yell. I didn't scold. I simply told him what I had once hoped for him, what I built for him, and why I could no longer let him near it. I wrote about the little boy who used to collect rocks from the garden and name them, who cried when his goldfish died, who held my hand in crowds that boy was gone, and I finally accepted it, the second. Letter was for Molly. I told her how proud I was, not for standing against them, but for standing for herself. I told her that bravery doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's a whisper that says, "Try again tomorrow." I left the third envelope blank. It was for me. I didn't know what to write yet, but I wanted to give myself space. Not to relive the past, but to acknowledge I had lived through it. Placed all 3 letters in a drawer by my bedside. No one might ever read them. That wasn't the point. Writing them was enough. It made something final. And in that finality, I found something. New freedom. 3 days later, a text lit up my phone. "Molly, guess what? I got the internship, the one I felt was too big for me. Starting next month. Can we celebrate?" I smiled so wide my cheeks hurt. I called her immediately. "You did it," I said, the words bubbling out before I could stop them. I was so scared to even apply. She laughed. But I heard your voice when I clicked send. Which voice? I teased. The one that says, "What's the worst that can happen, darling?" We made plans for dinner, just the two of us. No pretense. No big speeches, just spaghetti, garlic bread, and a celebration of a girl who had learned to trust her own voice. I hung up and stared at the phone for a long moment. For years, I tried to force a future onto Trevor. With Molly, I didn't need. Tish, she built her own path, and in some small way, I helped light it. Later that evening, I dusted the bookshelf in the hallway. An old habit that had once been a chore now felt like a ritual. My fingers paused over a faded family photo. Trevor as a baby in my lap, both of us smiling. I took it down. Gently. I placed it in a drawer with other snapshots of birthdays, Christmases, and summers when things still made sense. Then I pulled out a newer photo, Molly at her high school graduation, smiling with her cap tilted and holding her diploma like a trophy. I placed that one in the center of the shelf, not out of spite, out of clarity. Sometimes we have to make space for what's still growing. The house felt different now, lighter, not haunted, just emptied of the things that no longer belonged. I brewed a cup of chamomile and sat on the couch, the warm frame glowing softly under the lamplight. The past wasn't gone. It just didn't get to be louder than the present anymore. It's funny, really, how I spent so many years trying to prove I mattered to Trevor, to his world, to the legacy I built with calloused hands and sleepless nights. But in the end, it wasn't about proving anything. It was about remembering. Remembering that I was never just his mother. I was a builder, a keeper, a woman who made something from nothing. And when it all merely slipped away, I was the one who held the line, not out of bitterness, but out of love for myself, for Molly, for the work that deserved to survive without being swallowed by someone else's greed. People will say I cut him off, that I gave up on my only child. Let them, I didn't cut him off. He walked away, and I just didn't leave the door open this time. Now, when I walk through my house, I don't see ghosts. I see sunlight, books, fresh flowers in the hallway. A picture of a girl who chose truth over comfort, and a woman who finally chose herself. Not a forgotten daughter, but the one who remembered everything and held it all together.